Four French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. The three wide again, Guillaume down the inside. Gio moves across. They're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
But before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy. You know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake. Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been mugged and a drift is going off. Gregory now, I love it. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chaz Draycott Media, and welcome to another round of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, the second round of Season 5, and we're here at the legendary Long Beach. This is going to be one of the most unique rounds that the Championship has ever seen in all of its history. We've got 4 seasons behind us already, and we've not quite been on a street circuit like this one. Hope you're all having a fantastic evening wherever you may be around the world, and we thank you for joining us once again tonight. My name is Chaz Draycott. I'm delighted to have alongside me in the commentary box Ed May, and we're going to go over the championship standings and look at how they shape up before we get into tonight's racing. Of course, just one race so far this season, and that was won by Taylor Adams in the Regenta Sim Racing BMW. He scored 25 points for his troubles. His teammate Matt Slight scored 22, but he got pole position, which earned him a championship point as well. He sits in second on 23. Callum Brandt, on his return to the series, got a podium as well. And then behind them was Kyle Ridley in 4th place, reigning champion Nils Core in 5th, Dan McCauley, Jake Cranstone, Daniel Mills, Ayrton Williams and Rob Sharp complete the top 10. Regenta Sim Racing, understandably, lead the team's championship by 17 points from the likes of RD Simsport. They're only 2 points ahead of Satellite Racing Blue, 4 points clear of Apex Racing Academy, with Top of the Pops, who have a new livery tonight, in 5th position. Look out also for the driver in the BMW, Ben Chalcraft. He's got a new livery for this evening as well, and it's going to be a really solid night. We unfortunately don't have many cars out there on the circuit as of right now, just the one actually, which is Callum Brandt in his McLaren. He's doing some laps to complete his practice session, but it's a tight and twisty street circuit here tonight, and welcoming in Ed May. This is not one to take lightly here tonight, mate. Survival is going to be oh so important, isn't it?
Yeah, and what a completely different profile of circuit from what we saw last week, wasn't it? Basically a wide open Roval circuit in Indianapolis to, well, a very tricky street circuit here at Long Beach. You could just hear Callum getting a little friendly with the walls there, a bit of scraping of the paintwork as he clips the inside barrier. Again, you do need to basically drive as close as you possibly can to those barriers to maximise your run through the circuit. Again, qualifying is going to be so important for the drivers as well, because even if they make a 0x contact with the barrier by pushing that a little bit too hard, that does invalidate the lap time. It's not just the 1x incidents for basically track limits, it's 0x contact with the barriers will also invalidate a lap time. So these street circuits are an absolute killer for drivers trying to hot lap.
It really is. That final corner oh so important as well. Getting a good run out of there is mighty difficult, especially with the different types of car that we have out here this evening. We're going to have, of course, the McLaren's mid-engined machine. We also have the Porsche Caymans, which are mid-engined. One of the difficult cars to get around that final corner is the likes of the Mercedes and the BMW, those front-engine cars with long bonnets to them, and the Aston Martin, not so much. It's a bit of a shorter wheelbase front-engine car, the Aston. But at the moment, it's Lewis Ward, previous champion of the series, that is fastest. Taylor Adams, championship leader, in second place. Simon Povey finds himself in third ahead of Eton Williams. Matthias Tem makes his return to the championship, by the way. He's driving the Mercedes for Fury Simsport. It's great to have Matthias back with us. Daniel Parent-Smith up there in the top 10 as well. Nils Core, 8th position for him. Dan McCauley rounding out the top 10. We've got Dominic Brennan inside the top 10 as well. Well, a big field yet again here. Ed, 32 cars here tonight. So, again, survival is going to be key. 20 positions. The top 20 positions score points. So you need to just be basically keeping it out of the walls, don't you, to make sure that you get at least 1 point on the board for your championship campaign.
Yeah, it's a very impressive field we have here tonight. And obviously Simon Povey, after the disappointment of the opening round, is going to be hungry to try and get back up to winning ways to maintain a championship charge. Nils Core as well had a bit of an up and down race, but still came through, didn't he, in the end for some strong points to begin a championship fight to retain his crown. You can see he's running the number one from now on. There was a little bit of a hiccup earlier on. I think we can blame the drivers for that one being a bit too eager to get into the session before everything was fully sorted out. We can pin it on then, can't we?
I think so. There may be a few frame rate drops as well here this evening, everybody. As you can imagine, this is quite a frame rate intensive circuit. It is Long Beach, so I do please ask your forgiveness in regards to that. Here is Matt Slight, put it on pole position last time out at Indianapolis for the first round of the championship, and his teammate Taylor Adams, who won the race as well in the Regenta BMW's gorgeous looking car. Another one that's going to be difficult to beat here tonight. I've heard that the BMW is just about as quick as the McLaren's, but it's a little bit better on fuel, as we've seen before. But it's great to have Lewis Ward back at the top, isn't it? It looked like there were a few drivers, especially all of our previous champions, all had a bit of a difficult start to their season at Indianapolis, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was actually the newcomers that I think really took the early phase of the race by storm, wasn't it? Eton Williams and Daniel Parent-Smith, who were first and second for a majority of the race at Indianapolis. But it seems at the moment it's now the familiar faces that have taken their turn back on top with Simon Povey. You can see just waiting in the wings coming through that final corner. Really nice line taken. It's about hitting that late apex, opening up the corner as much as possible on the way into it, and getting on the power nice and early with that late apex to carry the momentum across the start-finish straight. That isn't really a straight, is it? Because it's just a long sort of series of bends, and then all of a sudden you've got it finally straightened up, but not for long, because you've got heavy braking zone where we're going to see, I think, a majority of the action in towards very tight turn one.
A big shout out to the championship sponsors, Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes, and now Bespoke Shelters as well, who we welcome back on board for another season. We're a little bit late in getting that one sorted, so that's on us. But yeah, Bespoke Shelters jumping back on as a sponsor of the series. So thank you very much to Alex Johns, father of Toby Johns, who races in the championship. It's great to have his support. Lovely to have him on side. Another special livery tonight for Simon Price. He's in the Capri Sun liveried machine this evening. And wait till you see the rear quarter of this car, because it is apparently nightmare fuel as he makes his way back past us. It's got the Capri Sun face on it, and a lot of the drivers really don't like the look of it. I love the blue gradient. I think it looks fantastic on this machine. He's got in front of him there the number 29 car of Kim Such. Kim's in the Orris Racing green car. First time I think we've seen Kim out this season. Usually driving the Porsche of previous rounds. But these guys going for the blue and yellow livery this time around. They're actually right together on circuit and right together in terms of their lap times. Ian Pfeiffer is the only one not to set a time so far for Satellite Racing Teal. We made sure that we were pronouncing his name right. Thank you to Ian, by the way, for clarifying that with us after the previous round. But practice now over, Ed, and it's time for the all-important qualifying session to get underway. What do you reckon they have to think about most round here?
Again, it's just about trying to find the space on circuit. Because it being a street track, you do need to worry about traffic, and there aren't really that many areas to overtake slower class cars, but not slower class cars, but just slower cars in general, because of the nature of the track as well. Drivers worrying about slipstream because of the long run out of final corner in towards turn one. That's going to be something as we see the Regenta Sim Racing drivers trying to work together. Taylor Adams and Matt Slight, who we are on board with now, being the first drivers out onto the circuit.
Yeah, they do this a lot, do Regenta Sim Racing. They get in the session as soon as possible and get out on track as soon as possible as well, as try and work together, get the clear air, give each other slipstream if they can. And it's been a winning formula for them for quite a while now. We saw it start off in the GT4 Winter Tour, and of course last season in the GT4 Challenge. They continue to do it here. They've got Ben Chalcraft behind, and the silver Mercedes, which I believe previously was Chris Jennings. It is Chris Jennings. This gorgeous silver spec map on the number 22 Merc. He's got right behind him Dennis Van Beelen in the Aston Martin, one of the Porsches in there, which I believe is Jake Cranstone. Jake in the Masters of Torque Machine. He had quite a solid debut as well, didn't he, Ed? We've seen him in a number of Chaz Draycott Media Series before. He was always quick there, and he's clearly carried that over into GT4 cars too.
Yeah, displayed some great racecraft as well. Looked very at home behind the wheel of his Porsche. I think we saw some of his moves up the inside that he was able to get it stopped as if it was a little Formula One Pro Mazda. He was really, really impressive. Again, that is the real strength of this Porsche, is the ability to just stamp on the brakes and stop it on a 5-pence piece. It is a really good car on circuits such as this one, tight, twisty, technical. With that shorter wheelbase, the Porsche can just turn like that. You can see, though, Jake Cranstone, if he can improve on his qualifying performance from last time, because I think that was the only aspect of his race that was lacking a little bit, wasn't it, last time out? The qualifying wasn't quite where I expect him to be. It did give us a great show, though, of him fighting up through the field, and you might see that as well. While the circuits, typically street circuits, qualifying is very important. One of the best things about Long Beach is that it's, for a street circuit, pretty wide. You can go too wide through a lot of the corners and fight it out, and again, with the long straights, there are sort of avenues for moves to be made, shall we say.
Yeah, definitely. There's always overtaking places. That right-hander there is a real nightmare, though. It's almost a blind apex. You've got a couple of different curbs on the insides that you can go through, but then when you get on the power, you try and get on it as early as possible, and the car seems to just magnetise itself to the wall on the outside line. Great to have, I believe, a 32-car field here once again this evening. A couple of absentees. We've got Daniel Mills not here tonight, unfortunately. He said he had a family arrangement, so we hope all is well there, Daniel. But he was a great debutant last time out at Indianapolis. I believe he got a top 10 finish. And we've got a few other drivers not racing with us this evening. Good to see Rob Sutherland in the chat. He's also in the race itself as well for RD Simsport 2 in his Aston Martin. He and a few of the guys further down the order had some great battles last time out. And again, that's one of the best things about this series, isn't it, Ed? All the drivers seem to really enjoy themselves, no matter where they are up and down the order.
Yeah, as you can see, Stephen Burns there in the top of the Pops livery. I'm not sure. This is a different one to what we saw last time.
Yeah, it changes each time.
Around on this one. Just trying to see it now.
It was
the Beach Boys?
Yes, it's the Beach Boys livery that they've brought out for this one. They've got different liveries for each round of the series, basically. Last time it was Staying Alive, because I believe it was the Bee Gees that they had on the car. And this time it's, the Beach Boys California Dreamin'. That's why it's the Capri Sun, the California Capri Sun for Simon Price. Taylor Adams is currently fastest by nearly a quarter of a second over his teammate Matt Slight. Ayrton Williams for Satellite Racing Blue, right up there once again. Another fantastic debutant to add to the championship. He and fellow debutant Daniel Parent-Smith for SRM Racing Black have been great, although Daniel seemingly wearing a different livery this time round, not racing in the SRM colours. Sorry, that's because I've not clicked on the right driver. I've clicked on Mark Johnson. Here's Daniel Perrin-Smith. I was going to say he wasn't in an Aston last time.
Yeah, impressive actually to see the Aston Martins doing so well. This is a circuit where, when you've got those sort of acceleration from slower speed corners, it's something that the Aston doesn't really like. It does tend to bog down, especially if you creep into the traction control in this thing. But I think the real benefit of this car is how it handles the bumps, and it isn't really the smoothest of surfaces around here. It is basically just a street that's used by cars for most of the year, so it's not going to be as smooth as a purpose-built racetrack, and the Aston Martin rides those bumps really nicely. It can take the curbs as well without any real complaints, so I think the benefits do tend to outweigh the downsides in this car, because it's looking pretty comfortable for Niels Kor at the moment.
His internet isn't, unfortunately, but Niels Kor proudly displaying the number 1 on the car this time round. We have got the numbers sorted after last time, so Niels, as reigning champion, wears that number with pride. The top 4, well, they were separated by less than a tenth of a second. They still are, actually. Ayrton Williams just less than a tenth off the top spot. But Niels Kor, reigning champion, has gone fastest. Lewis Ward and Matthias Tem, second and third. Let's have a look at Matthias's gorgeous Fury Simsport Mercedes. He put a picture in the Discord server earlier on of this, and it is absolutely magnificent to look at. I love a silver spec map on these cars, but the Fury livery certainly standing out. A team you used to drive for as well, Ed.
Yeah. I'm still in touch with the drivers. I was actually speaking to Matthias when I noticed that he'd signed up, and had a check-in with him, and then had a bit of a chin where just about other stuff outside of racing, how we were, and also a little bit of musical sort of similarities as well, geeking out about the new Justice album. It was a good little chat, so I'll try and be as unbiased as possible, but it's good to see Matthias back behind the wheel, and good to see Fury Simsport on our screens again.
Yeah, it's good to see him going well as well. He was always quick in previous seasons. He was always right in the thick of the action as well, it's safe to say. We've got Tom Stanley currently inside the top 10. Good to have Tom with us, a driver that I've raced with for, wow, nearly 10 years now here on iRacing. I noticed the other day, actually, after doing the driver numbers and doing the livery files and decal layers and all that for the start of this championship, we now have 7-digit iRacing IDs. They start with a 1 again now, and then go 1-0 and then multiple numbers. It's terrifying that we've got over 1 million drivers on iRacing, 1 million accounts. But hats off to iRacing for doing that. Ayrton Williams cracking on, and he is now fastest out of everybody, ahead of his teammate Niels Kor. So a 1-2 for Satellite Racing Blue. They were going well at Indianapolis, to be fair, weren't they, Ed? So it's no surprise.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be too surprising. But again, you can see he's pushing hard, and that little kiss on the barrier, as you saw just coming out, that little touch in his rear tyres can just be enough to invalidate a lap time. Zero X contact with the barriers, while they don't really gain you anything, they're deemed by iRacing as essentially exceeding track limits. Basically, I think it's mainly used in oval racing, actually, to stop people wall riding on some of the short ovals, but it's a system that's also implemented on road courses as well.
Yeah, it's certainly something you need to be really careful of here. It's not like you can get away with a little bit of runoff or a bit of grass here and there. It's incredibly close again, though. Only a second separating the top 19 cars. We look here at Ben Idris Abdullahi, currently in 8th place in the Chicane Online Racing BMW. Matthias Tem goes up into second fastest, just 11 thousandths ahead, as Simon Povey now goes second quickest instead. Would you look at that, between Tem, Kor and Lewis Ward, there is only 17 thousandths of a second between second, third and fourth. Identical times actually for Abdullahi and Slight, 0.585 seconds, sorry, 0.585 of a second off pole, and constant movement up and down the order. No drivers without a time on the board now. Rob Sharp, though, will be wanting to improve. He's down there in 27th place. Surely that's just a lack of valid lap times for Rob. He's usually right in the sharp end of the field. Let's see what he can do this time in his beloved Porsche. The Orris Racing Machine goes up into 21st place. So it is an improvement, but not by a big amount. Jake Cranstone is still in 16th place at the moment as well. Toby Ward, by the way, oh, that's not going to help Chalcraft through there. Toby Ward did tell me that he was going to turn up with pink wheels tonight. He did ask me how dead he would be and how quickly he was going to get banned. And I did mean to reply to him, but he's going to get banned if he doesn't do it, doesn't change them back for next time, I can tell you that. He did tell me that it's very likely, actually, that he's one of the only people in here that's raced on a street circuit in real life. He actually has real-world experience of racing on a street track, does Toby. But hopefully he doesn't have real-world experience of running pink wheels, because they look awful. Oh, that's Ayrton Williams. He's facing the wrong way and jumps back to the pit lane. He's had a drama down there at the hairpin, which is easily done. But it's very busy. You get the sense that it's busy out there on track, don't you, Ed?
Yeah, you really do. It's you can tell just from the onboard that it's going to retire stem. There's a car ahead of him, and then you can see a few more just up the road as well. So it's tricky to find the track space as some of the drivers have decided to come into the pits for fresh tyres and have another run of things. It's close, isn't it? Up between Ayrton Williams and Simon Povey. Simon back up to the top where we're, I think, used to seeing him, it's fair to say. He found himself out of position as well, actually, at the start of the opening round, just due to qualifying not quite going his way. But now it seems to be business as usual for a driver who I think is the most winningest in the history of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge.
Yeah, indeed, Simon Povey hoping to take more glory. He's got black wheels on the Mercedes as opposed to the usual white wheels that we run at Spontex CDM Esports. It just looks very beefy on this car, to be honest with you. We've got a slightly matte spec map for this season as well. It's the updated livery, so it's got all the logos on it now, as opposed to the sort of barren one that they had for the first round of the championship. He and Dominic Brennan both running the new colours for tonight. Dominic currently down in 16th place. He had a bit of a torrid time at Indianapolis, didn't he, with a spin right at the start of the race. He never properly recovered all the way up to the sharp end, did he? But it was so close throughout the field, there's no surprise really.
Yeah, he did manage to recover to get some points on the board for Spontex CDM Esports, but again, it was a small comfort for him. He'll be hoping for better things. He just needs to have a very nice and sensible race, really. If he can improve on his qualifying position, that'd be great. But even then, like we were saying at Long Beach, this is a circuit where you can make up moves during the race just by being careful, but also by making those moves when they present themselves, because you can see there's a few areas on the circuit where you are flat out for quite a long period of time. The drivers are also debating. I think we've had a few conversations about what the strategies are going to be like, Chaz, and I think the consensus is the quickest is going to be a single stop race.
Yeah, there are going to be drivers going for it, and they reckon it'll be the BMWs. Seems like it's the car to be in when it comes to saving fuel. The McLaren is as quick as the Beamer, apparently, but they need to make it work more than the other drivers. Callum Brandt, by the way, inside McLaren, down in 18th place at the moment, finished third at Indianapolis. Let's see what this time does for him as he crosses the line. Does he hop up the board? Doesn't look like it. Currently 18th fastest is not where we expect to see Callum. Previously a championship contender in former seasons of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We ride on board now, you get an idea of just how quickly these walls do fly at you. The thing is as well is you need to open up the corner as much as possible as well, so even on the entrance to the corner you have to get really close to the barriers. We will see a few times tonight, won't we, Ed, where it looks like they clip the wall and the sim will sort of make the sound and it will sort of give a little puff of smoke like that, or some sparks, but they haven't actually touched it. It's just down to network and sort of net code, as we call it.
Yeah, it's going to be a case of the drivers maybe scraping a little bit of the paintwork off, but they shouldn't really be seeing too much damage. Lewis Ward there improving up to third place, just behind Simon Povey. You can see that the Mercedes is pretty strong around here, but it's the Aston Martins that have the top of the times, with Ayrton Williams up there and Nils Core as well, and they're in fifth place. Cars that I thought were going to be the strongest around here aren't quite there, but Daniel Parent-Smith doing the job for the Porsches at the very least, up in 7th place, only 4/10 off our pole sitter.
It's crazy close.
Yeah, actually the McLarens aren't really coming into their own, are they? They're struggling just a touch.
Yeah, not quite lighting up the timing screens at the moment, the McLarens, but oh, there's a big hit for Daniel Parent-Smith. That's definitely not one that's down to netcode. But yeah, it's great to see that it's so close between everybody. I mean, I think after the first round of the championship, we said there's probably a good 15 or 16 drivers that could have won that first race if things had just fallen into their lap a little bit more, or they'd got a little bit more lucky with it. Thanks everybody, by the way, who is watching. We're only streaming to YouTube now here on Chaz Draycott Media for our iRacing broadcasts. No longer streaming them to Facebook as well. It's just going to be a direct stream to YouTube, and it's going to be exclusively on there. so don't worry about following the Facebook page for any of that. We look here at Dan McCauley, the second of the two Apex Racing Academy Mercedes. Dan just following the current pole sitter, actually, Ayrton Williams, Satellite Racing Blue. He's going through the first couple of corners now, and you can see they're the moments where the sparks fly, you hear the noise, but it's just because basically his sim has got him that close to the wall that at our end it goes, oh, I think he's touched the wall, so I'm going to show it anyway. And he hasn't really. The two Frenchmen sticking together in the middle of the field, Ben Idris Abdelahi and Ian Pfeiffer, right near each other in terms of their lap times. Currently in 11th and 12th, but only 10 seconds left on the clock. They do get the time to finish their lap here though, Ed, so Callum Brandt, luckily for him, has just started another one.
Yeah, Callum Brandt is timed his run to perfection, needs to improve on his 18th place. He got a podium last time out, so we'll be hoping to try and get right up the order this time as well. We're seeing where his RD Simsport teammate is Guy Edwards up in 14th, and he's just taken a trip into the pit, so he's not going to improve on his 14th place either. Few drivers trying to improve at the moment. Dan McCoy coming over the line. A few improvements. Improves on his position from 9th up to 7th. So that's a good little jump up the order. Closer to his teammate Lewis Ward. Lewis we just see actually over the line. Improves on his time, but not his position. Stays 4th at the moment. Just behind Matthias Tem by, for the slimmest of the margins, 0.02 of a second.
Yeah, very, very small margin between those boys. You've got Matt Slight and Mark Johnson making their way to the line. Mark there in the Walliams Racing Mercedes, and oh no, he's messed it up, and oh, Ben Chalcraft gets caught out by it as well. That's a big, big shame, but that's what we're going to see a little bit around there. Lee Berridge taking a very wide line into these final few corners. He was up on some of the sectors. You've got to be really careful getting on the throttle out of there, just to not push the car wide into the barriers. He's going to cross the line now, and it looks like Callum Brandt backed out of his lap time. Callum will start this race from 18th on the grid, and that, everybody, is qualifying done with here at Long Beach for round 2 of season 5 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. I can't quite believe how quickly that session flew by. The race is probably going to be very similar. It's an hour-long race. We expect to see 2 pit stops from almost everybody. Some drivers will be able to save fuel and just get 1 stop, but we'll have to wait and see how they manage that. Sounds like there's some sort of music or something going on down there. Never really noticed that here at Long Beach, but it's a hell of a circuit to drive though, isn't it, Ed? It's really rewarding when you get it right round here, even though the walls are so close all the time. It just gives you that sort of tunnel vision, that excitement. It gives you a sense of speed, doesn't it?
Yeah, the drivers are going to be very grateful at the fact that they have a fast repair available to them, so if they do manage to have any sort of meetings with the barriers, they'll be able to get the car fixed up, but no real cost to their time. The only cost will be having a unscheduled pit stop that could throw their race plans out the window.
This is your grid then for round 2 of the championship, and it's debutant for this season, Ayrton Williams taking pole position and a championship point with it as well. Simon Povey will start alongside him, just less than 1/10 of a second off, with Matthias Tem on his return to the series in 3rd place, Lewis Ward alongside him. Then it's Nils Kaur and Taylor Adams on row 3, plenty of battles from those two in the past. Then it's an all-Dan row 4, Dan McCauley and Daniel Parron-Smith. Matt Slight and Tom Stanley complete the top 10, good qualifying from the Prestandard Nomad car. Ben Idris Abdelahi and Ian Pfeiffer make it an all-French row 6. Next up is Dennis Van Beelen for Chicane Online Racing. He's alongside Guy Edwards, the highest placed McLaren in the field. Jake Cranstone is next with Ben Chalcraft alongside him in 16th. Dominic Brennan and Callum Brandt, wow, go back a few seasons, and would you have thought they'd qualify 17th and 18th? John Barnes 19th, Toby Johns in 20th place, Stephen Codman and Rob Sharp make up the 11th row. Again, Rob down in 22nd, a very topsy-turvy session that. Toby Ward is 23rd with Stephen Burns in 24th place, ahead of Mark Johnson and John Roberts. We then have Lee Berridge and Chris Jennings on the 14th row. Martin Kenyon and Rob Sutherland complete the top 30, and then we have Kim Such and Simon Price rounding out our entire field here at Long Beach for round 2 of the season, and the field will be starting part way around the lap to get this rolling start underway. There is a slight sort of change to proceedings here though, Ed, as the drivers have been told they need to sort of chill out, single file around the final corner, then form up on the start finish straight.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully we have a good bunch of drivers here, because normally telling racing drivers to chill out is going to get you, well, a swift two-word response. But thankfully they've all been kept on board, haven't they, with everything that's going on in our plans for a race. It's basically half a... It's, to be fair, it's a good chunk of the circuit that they're actually having to roll around before they get the race underway, even though it is essentially the shortest possible run they can have because of the nature of the circuit. That's really the only spot they can fit all the cars on in one place.
You can see here just how tightly packed it is around this track as well. All the buildings, skyscrapers and all sorts. Look, from this chopper view, you don't really get to see a huge amount from above. It is a very, very busy track, this, here at Long Beach. Not the longest lap in the world either, to be fair, especially in a GT4 car. They are very, very quick machines, these cars. Massive drop of frame rate there, thank you very much. But it's fine. We do get that. We had a bit of it at Indianapolis at the start of the season, but Ed Williams has taken his first pole position of the championship. He's got Simon Povey alongside, and you'll see now that some of the drivers will be careful to go single file, take a wide line. Matthias Tem, a little bit too wide there, Matthias. Flipping heck. They're slowing down to let them all form up, though. And as they head down the start-finish straight, Ayrton Williams doing a great job there, actually, holding the field to good pace so they can catch up. Hopefully no more shenanigans in the background. He's going to wait till the start-finish line. The field is not going to go on green. He's going to go now. And round 2 of the championship gets underway with Ayrton Williams leading Simon Povey and everybody else behind in a big tight pack. Matthias Tem side by side with Lewis Ward. The whole field rushing down towards turn 1. It's done quite a good job of spreading them out at this stage here, Ed. Dan McCauley actually looking down the inside of Daniel Parron-Smith, but no, not this time round. And then it's Tom Stanley around the outside of him. Is everyone going to get through safely? Certainly looks like it from this point. There's drama in front. Guy Edwards is stuck on the inside. That's Matt Slight against the fountain. And for some reason, Matt is deciding to reverse across the circuit. That's not quite what we would have had in mind there. The circuit is completely blocked down there at the fountain, and they're still trying to get going. And there's more contact between them. But I think, to be honest, poor decision-making there from Matt Slight really, really rubbed salt in the wound there.
Yeah, but that's obviously hurt a lot of drivers that didn't get the best qualifying, wasn't it? We can see that Callum Brandt has dropped way down the order and lost touch with the lead pack by quite some margin. That's just basically an extra punishment, if you like, for not quite qualifying, where your pace is indicating. Jake Cranston, I think, actually did quite well to get through all of that, because I think he was sort of right there when the incident happened. He managed to jump up 4 places.
Lee Berridge has certainly benefited as well. He's gained 11 spots in that one. He's absolutely flown up the order. They eventually did a good job of sorting it all out, but it was just that Matt went... I mean, he obviously thought he was in the middle of the road. We've spoken about this before. When a driver gets stuck in the middle of the circuit, you can feel like, oh no, as there is a BMW around on the exit. That is Ben Idris Abdullahi.
Azur to do the right thing by just staying still and letting everyone by, but he's going to basically drop right away to the tail end of the field. He thinks about moving, but then sees another car's coming up on the Delta.
Oh dearie me.
And now he can finally get moving.
Good stuff. That was really good, that from Ben Idris Abdullahi. Nicely done. Kept the car in one place, and you've got to be predictable. That's the thing, you've got to be predictable where the car's going to sit. We'll have a look at how all of this came about then, because, well, it was a very, very messy moment, unfortunately. It's not what we want to see. Dennis Van Beelen, apparently one of the first cars to come to strife. As, Matt Slight then was in front and bounced off the side of somebody, but then, yeah, I think he thought he was in the middle of the road and wanted to get out of the way. He tries the 3-point turn and, well, it just... I mean, I didn't realise you could drive that far up the fountain, in fairness. Let's see if we can figure out what happened to Matt in all of that. Oh, he bounces off the back of the Mercedes. Yeah, and then Guy Edwards, no time to react. And it's just, yeah, it's the insult to injury that causes going across the road there from Matt.
It's Toby Johns that actually is doing the right thing by trying to go all the way around the outside, but then the sort of action reversing stops him in his tracks. Matthias Tem now, you can see in the thick of the action, he's got 2 cars around his outside, so now go to the inside. Could lose up to Niels Kort and Taylor Adams. Taylor Adams backs out, but Niels Kort takes the place up into 4th. But Matthias, with a good run through there, is going to fight it all the way back through the fountain. They go side by side. Neil's Core just about hanging on, but there's no space for them too wide. I think Neil's Core just tried to close the door a little bit. There wasn't really anywhere that Matthias would have gone apart from in the barrier.
And I think Matthias was flashing his lights because he felt a bit hard done by earlier. This was Lewis Ward. Oh, Matthias didn't leave the room. And then Simon cut the nose off into the hairpin, and that's where it all started, you see. Matthias will now flash his lights as he leaves the corner. He had his nose down the inside of Simon, but you can argue it was a little bit late. And then this is where it all went to pot, really. The two of them right together. And it was great racing. I mean, really close stuff. Lovely side-by-side action, but I think Nils just hoped that Matthias was going to back out of that one, and, well, Matthias rightly stood his ground. This is a great cutback. Lovely move, well calculated across the back of the Aston Martin. And you'll see they both give enough room through there. It's all lovely. I think he was expecting to get rid of the overlap. They actually hooked together quite early on there, so I'd argue that I don't think Nils was not going to leave the room. I think they just got dragged together, didn't they?
A little bit of netcode forcing the cars to sort of hook up to one another, and then that's what saw Nils Core spin around. Nils dropping all the way down to 14th place as a result of that incident. So again, on the early phases of this race, there's not really any way to rejoin the track safely. You can't use any runoff areas to turn the car around. You just have to basically wait for a gap in the traffic, which means you lose a lot more places with an incident here than you would at other circuits.
Someone that's not lost any places at the moment is our race leader, Ayrton Williams, the Australian driver for Satellite Racing Blue, doing a fantastic job at the front of the pack. He's led from the very beginning and used the clear air here at the street circuit to get on with it. And look at these two battling away, two titans of the championship, both previous champions, Simon Povey and Lewis Ward. 3 titles between the pair of them, both in the Mercedes. Equal machinery this season, on the same setup, the same balance of performance, and they're fighting for 2nd and 3rd position in this race. They've got a gap now over Matthias Tem after all of that drama earlier on. Tom Stanley's up into 7th position. Biggest mover in the field is still Lee Berridge. There's a huge train of them in the middle of the pack still that could all close in on each other and have a fight. Nils Core not too chuffed, I imagine, with what went on earlier, but like we said, I think the two cars got hooked together quite early, so I don't think either of them were particularly at fault. They were trying to both leave room, and then the incident came about. Whoa, Nils fast through there, nearly hits the back of Guy Edwards on the exit of the hairpin. Almost caught him off guard there. Rob Sharp and Chris Jennings are close together a bit further down the pack. Rob, not quite on the same pace we usually see him here tonight, Ed.
No, it might just be a case of drivers not being quite at home with the circuit. It's a very tricky one sometimes, and certain drivers like that bit of flow. They like the feel of a sort of more conventional circuit because it allows them to push a bit more, knowing that if they do make a mistake, it's not going to have that big of an issue because there's just runoff area. With here, the barriers, it can upset certain drivers' sort of just general approach to races and cornering. As Chris Jennings up the inside, a little bit of a squeeze on the way into the corner, opening it up brilliantly, and then see that for a moment Rob Sharp thought about having a little bit of a cutback manoeuvre, but thought better of it. Might have seen what happened earlier between Matthias and Nils and decided, I don't want to get involved in anything like that. No,
it was a little bit tough earlier on, wasn't it? But we have the first few laps out of the way, and it's still Povey and Ward that are glued to each other for 2nd and 3rd positions. You need to be careful over the curbs actually there, because you can get a slowdown penalty if you cut it too fine on that inside. But look at both of them really pushing. You can see how the car floats out of the corner. They're getting on the power as soon as possible. Big shout out once again to our championship sponsors, Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Bespoke Shelters, who return for another series as a sponsor of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We do thank you immensely from the bottom of our hearts for the support. As right now we have another battle going on here. Dominic Brennan chasing down Jake Cranstow, moving around in that BMW. That didn't look very comfortable on the brakes, did it?
Well, that was, I think, a case of when you get hard onto the brakes, when the ABS kicks in, the car becomes very unpredictable, and Dominic Brennan did very well to keep it under control because it's so easy just to have the car go straight on you and plow into the back of the car ahead. So very good awareness. Right, Dom Brennan lives to fight another day and to fight with Jake Cranstone for that 10th position. I want to see though if we can, Chaz, the sort of beginning of the next lap on board with Taylor Adams, because I think he's saving a lot of fuel in behind Matthias Tem. We saw him very close coming out of the final corner, but coming in towards turn 1 he had dropped back quite considerably. So I think Taylor Adams is one of the drivers who's definitely planning a fuel-saving race. You can hear he was clutching in very early there, and we're going to see it again all the way down the start-finish. Not quite straight, and in towards turn 1.
So clumsy, this sector of the circuit. Look how tight that final corner is. I mean, you get an idea of it from the outside when we have that external camera view, but when you're on board with the car, the rotation just doesn't seem natural at all. Here we are then, up through the gears. 200 kilometers an hour up into 5th. Not quite up into 6th, I don't think. And then listen. Wow, that is a big old lift. Doesn't seem like you'll save a lot doing that when you hear it once or twice, but with the amount of the stints that these guys do, that's really going to add up. Just that corner alone, isn't it?
It really is, and I'm definitely thinking that he's probably not the only driver doing it. Matthias might be doing it a touch as well, but for the moment, Taylor Adams really just using Matthias for his own gains. Try and save as much fuel as possible. Speaking of gains, Matthias is gaining a little bit on Lewis Ward and Simon Povey. That last lap, he was 2 tenths of a second quicker than the pair currently in second and third. About matching pace as well with our race leader, who is again pulling away a touch from Simon Povey by 2 tenths of a second. So it's looking pretty comfortable at the moment for Ethan Williams, but I wonder if he's actually managing the race as well as some of those in behind by saving the fuel. If he's committing to a 2-stop, he might find himself losing out by the end of the race.
Yeah, he's doing a brilliant job at the moment. Simon doing well to hold on against Lewis Ward. Lewis also doing a fantastic job to stay in close proximity. It's not easy, let's remember. It's not just about defending around a track like this, but being able to follow so closely as well is not easy, is it? To have that car right in front of you the whole time and not get caught out by braking zones, not get caught out by even not being able to see the apex wall when you go into a corner. I mean, we'll go on board with Lewis Ward now. There's going to be points here where you don't get a full idea of where all these sharp corners and walls are when you get to them. You have to remember it on muscle memory, just disregarding the car in front of you. This is not easy what he's doing right now.
Yeah, just seeing at the moment. Again, over the curves, it's so tricky, isn't it, to keep it balanced. It looked like Simon got a little bit loose on the way out of the corner. Managed to recover it nicely. Again, that gap is growing every single moment that Ayrton Williams is ahead. Every lap, he seems to be going that little bit faster. And last time it was 4 tenths of a second, Chaz. He's really putting the afterburners on, trying to break away from this pair in behind. He might be committing to going flat out and hoping the time he's able to gain is basically enough to see him safe with a pit stop.
Kim Such has unfortunately had a drama. I think he's just clipped the wall on the inside there, and it's so easy to spin the car when doing that. He came to a stop for a second just to make sure that there was nobody coming, and then he got going once again after that. We come back here to Dominic Brennan, who's chasing down Jake Cranstone. Ian Python not too far ahead of these two as well. He's currently gained 3 places up into 9th. They've got a good gaggle behind them as well, as we've got Guy Edwards, Nils Kaur and John Barnes. Nils trying to recover from his earlier incident. Down the start-finish straight once again they go. McLaren looks lovely in that RD Simsport livery. Very good looking car. RD's branding has always been really sort of not aggressive, but it's had this sort of stealthy look about it, and the colour combinations are always tidy. They have this sort of blue livery, this teal livery. Guy Edwards goes a little bit too hot into there. Nils Kaur flashing around quite a bit here. That's not going to be comfortable for John Barnes, who's just behind him, is it?
Could have been also, maybe his connection issues contributed to the earlier incident between himself and Matthias, where we saw the two cars come a little bit sort of hooked together. It could be just a case of Nils Kaur's connection being a little bit off kilter.
He's got ahead.
As Nil gets ahead now of the 55 of Guy Edwards. We saw Guy go a little bit too deep into turn 1. Maybe I think that was a sign that Guy thought, I'm not quite gelling with the circuit as well as Nils is. I'm going to follow him for a few laps and might help him out as well with his pursuit of potentially a top 10 finish.
Here's Stephen Burns from Top of the Pops. We don't have Kyle Ridley on track tonight either, which is a shame. Kyle had a fantastic finish last time out in 4th place in the first round of the championship. But his teammate Stephen flying the flag this time round with the Beach Boys on the car. Toby Johns just behind him, then Ben Chalcraft currently holding on to the final point scoring position after being caught up in the drama earlier on. He's got the Saltaire Cascade livery on. It's from Saltaire Brewery. This is this week's flavour, so to speak. Ben's always been good at making quick shift or quick fire liveries. makeshift liveries, I was going to say, but they're not makeshift. They're very, very good. There's big amount of curb there for Jake Cranstone as we cut back to him, still trying to defend from Don Brennan in that menacing BMW.
Yeah, you also spoke about Kyle Ridley flying the flag. I think flying the flag for those down under. Aaron Williams still doing very well, isn't he, out in front? But he's actually dropped back quite a bit on that last lap. It was at 26.79. So was there a bit of a mistake somewhere, potentially, for it? Because he's dropped back a lot to Simon Povey. And Aaron Williams in behind. It was about a second and
1.3-ish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That is a big, big difference from one lap to the next. He's really feeling it at the moment. Maybe some of the pressure settling in. The tyres will be getting shredded as well, because look at the track temperature, 42 degrees right now. In practice earlier, it was 50 degrees though. So that's come down quite a lot since we started earlier on. It's currently 10 to 4 in the afternoon in the sim. So as you can see as well, the sun is definitely not disappearing. Air temperature isn't massive, but that sun is really baking down. It's the Californian sun, isn't it?
What a way to respond. Rumours of Aaron Williams' demise, I think, have been greatly exaggerated, because he's now gone 5/10. Well, actually, no, 6/10 of a second quicker than Simon Povey. So, you know what? I think it's back to business as usual. Business as usual for Aaron Williams out ahead. And these two continuing on their, well, let's say business together out on the circuit. Simon Povey, Lewis Ward with Matthias Tem slowly but surely reeling them in. The gap sort of ebbs and flows between the pair of them, and Taylor Adams sticking with Matthias, just saving as much fuel as he can do. Daniel Perrin-Smith, after a good showing last time out, still up there inside the top 10, up 2 places into 6th place ahead of Dan McCauley and Tom Stanley. We haven't seen actually the Prestanda Nomad cars too much around there, but Tom's having a good run of things, isn't he? Up 2 places, currently in behind Dan McCauley. Again, he's going to be a driver, I think, who's going to be trying to save as much fuel as possible in the Aston.
Yeah, not quite the most prominent team out there right now, the Prestanda cars, which is ironic considering how brightly coloured they are. They had not quite as much luck at Indianapolis, but Tom's come out of the gates here, really all guns blazing. So he's having a good start to his night, up into the top 10. Some big championship points potentially on the board. It's great to see Tom still going well after all these years. Like I say, been racing with him for a mighty, mighty long time. Dominic Brennan still very close to the back of Jake Cranstone in the background there. They've now got Nils Core for company. Nils has closed in on them after dispatching of Guy Edwards not too long ago. It looks to me like Jake has backed out slightly of something there, and Dom has managed to go around the outside. Is he going to get it done? I don't think Jake did that on purpose. Maybe just missed a gear or something. No, Dom is now in front. So,
yeah, Jake lifting off massively, using this as an opportunity to save fuel, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Down into turn 1, you could see how far he backed out of that. But he didn't back out of going near that wall, though, did he, Ed? That was very close.
Yeah, you can lift off, but then it obviously makes it a bit trickier to find your braking point if you take sort of a bit more speed out of the corner. You try and brake a little bit later, and sometimes you brake a little bit too late. And Jake Cranston just about judged it to perfection, really chucking it at the barriers. That's kind of what you've got to do. You've got to chuck it at the barriers, but not into them. It's a very fine line to run on these street circuits, but drivers managing it well enough so far. Simon Povey with his best lap of the race so far, just trying to reduce the deficit to Ayrton Williams up in the lead of the race, but they're sort of keeping it consistent with the 1:25. So I've just seen the fast. Matthias Davis just put in his fastest lap of the race so far, and is, I think, really starting to throw his hat into the ring for this battle for the podium places, because he's, well, 1.6 seconds back. He's going to start to get the sort of benefit of a slipstream now in towards turn 1.
Yeah, these two are just playing the game at the minute, aren't they? They're not really overdoing it. They're just putting in decent pace while saving a bit of fuel. But Tem, yeah, he's getting closer and closer all the time. 1.4 seconds off this duo in front. Taylor Adams, I think, doing the same that we saw him do last week at Indianapolis. He's playing the strategy game here. We've seen him and his teammate do it in the past in the McLarens. They've certainly learned how to make it work in the BMW too. So definitely one to watch for the season. He and Matt Slight first and second in the standings currently. Unfortunately, Martin Kenyon is a lap down at the back of the field in the Jelly Babies car, so not quite a sweet result for him. Kim Such in the Orris Racing Green BMW also struggling in the early stages. Matt Slight is still inside the top 20 after his early debacle, but he's 8 places down on where he started, so he was already sort of in the thick of it, wasn't he? Because he started 9th So he was right in the middle of that pack anyway. But still, it's good to see he was able to at least still carry on after that.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to come back from those sort of setbacks earlier on. But I think Matt Slight is certainly one of the drivers going to be watching for the strategy. It was what saw him to great heights, wasn't it, last time out at Indianapolis? With him and his Regenta Sim Racing teammate. But I think both of them are having not the best of races so far, I think it's fair to say. Taylor Adams currently flying the flag for Regenta up into 5th place. He's able to save the fuel behind Matthias like he's been doing all race long. Could be in with a very good chance of winning this race here tonight and really making a sort of a stamp of authority on his championship charge. And Williams, though, again, pulling away a little bit from Simon Povey, and he isn't hanging about, is he? He isn't pulling his punches into these corners.
No, he's really sending it into each of them, but this is the thing. All it takes is to just overdo it that one little bit, and he could really ruin his night. There's tyre walls like that stick out a lot in certain corners here, and all you know is that if you push your luck around a track like this, you're going to pay for it, aren't you?
Yeah. Tyres 10 with the fastest lap of the race so far. Last time around, 1 minute 47.7. And Taylor Adams not far behind with 1 minute 24.8. So those pair are the fastest cars out on the circuit at the moment, currently in 4th and 5th. But you can see now that that 2-car fight for second has become a 4-way tussle with Matthias Tem right in the midst of it all. Lewis Ward and Simon Povey. Is that going to give them a little bit of a hurry up potentially to catch up to Ayrton if they want to sort of keep Matthias at bay? We know Matthias is a driver that, if he sees an opportunity for a move, he will go for it. Saw it earlier, didn't we, with his lovely battle with Niels Kaur that was sadly just interrupted with netcode. He had the right to the inside and took it. I wonder if we're going to see that if the door is left open at all by Lewis Ward.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've now got this quartet instead of what we had earlier. They've got a decent gap over Daniel Parent-Smith as well, of a good couple of seconds. I do wonder if they will battle, though, if they get together. I'm not sure if there's going to be a general consensus here that they all try and save a bit of fuel and stay ahead of this BMW, Taylor Adams behind them, because at the end of the day, if they have a fight, all it'll do is back them up and just make their own life difficult. Looking here at Ian Pfeiffer, he's got company in the form of Dominic Brennan. Only a few tenths of a second here, and Ian is putting the car in the middle of the road here, trying to make sure that Dom does not have an easy way through. This is another quartet to think about. 2 satellite racing cars here, so maybe he's trying to help out Niels Kaur in getting through this. But then again, backing him up on a street circuit, it's never always the wisest idea, is it?
Not really, but again, it's just about trying to manage the race that you find yourself in. Sometimes, if you are being backed up, it can be a case of either trying to save the fuel while you're in that position, make some benefit, or just come into the pits a little bit earlier. Drivers still not having pitted yet. This is the time of the race where we usually see drivers start to make their sort of first pit stops in. They're roughly the sort of 10-minute period from around about the 40-minute mark to the 30-minute mark. But if the drivers are saving fuel, they won't want to come in until, well, over 30 minutes have gone past in the race. So they've hit that half race distance, then they'll know that we're safe till the end. But of course, it's a little bit easier to save on the second stint rather than the first, because the first stint you've got sort of the half a pace lap to worry about with your fuel calculations, and while it doesn't seem like a lot, it can affect drivers being able to make it a lap longer or not.
Yeah, that's the thing. It can be the complete swing of this race, what your pit strategy is and how you make it work. That's always been the sort of interesting element of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge and our 1 hour long races. There have been certain circuits in the past where drivers have been able to one-stop the entire race, and it's been very, very entertaining. It still happens now. A little bit more common with the update to the BMW since the last update to iRacing. It seems to be the car to be in for fuel economy, which is ironic, really. It saves money on indicators, I suppose. But there you go. Simon Povey still second. Just
loses it on headlights, though, doesn't it, being on full beam?
Yes, flashing everybody. And to be fair, powering your Bluetooth headset as well is...
hands-free.
Shut up. Simon Povey just holding on in front of Lewis Ward. But I don't think Lewis is really making an immediate attack at any point soon, is he? I think Simon's realised that by now. And as a driver, you know, when you get a stint out of the way like this, where you know that the guy behind isn't constantly doing everything he can to get past you, puts you at ease a little bit. Makes it easier to sort of run your race, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does still weigh in the back of your mind, though, that if you do make a mistake, you're going to lose out. The driver behind is going to pounce on you no matter what. So you do need to keep hitting your marks, but you don't need to worry about them trying anything unorthodox into the braking zones. You are right that it can calm the drivers down and sort of prevent those mistakes from creeping in. But it's always a thought in the driver's head that should they slip up just a bit, they could lose out, not just the one place, but on a street circuit. If you get forced offline, any other cars behind will be there to basically just gobble you up. So Tyce Tim and Taylor Adams could find themselves gaining some places if car ahead makes a little bit of an error. But I think, like you mentioned, Chaz, they're all just working together now. They're realising that the race is won not just out on the road, but also in the pits.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be keeping our eye out for drivers coming in for their stops anytime soon. Pretty sure that it's going to be right around the corner for some of them. Maybe some of the drivers in the middle of the field that haven't been able to break away. Daniel Parron-Smith has had no car in front of him throughout this first stint. He's had nobody to slipstream from. He's only been giving slipstream in tiny doses to the likes of Dan McCauley and Tom Stanley. Even then, I mean, there's just about 7/10 of a second between him and Dan, so I'm not sure that a Mercedes driver can save much fuel, if any. You can do a lot of it yourself with lifting off, as we've seen before. The slipstream makes a huge difference because it's the main part where you'd usually be flat out. You don't need to be. Lee Berridge has just done his fastest lap of the race. Continues to be the highest placed, or the most positions gained in the race to Lee Berridge, if that makes sense. That didn't sound like English, Chaz, so I'm going to start again. Lee Berridge has gained the most amount of places out of anybody in this race. There you go. 12 gained so far. We've got Stephen Burns on 6, Dominic Brennan on 7. He's now inside the top 10. Still on the back of Ian Pfeiffer, though. Not able to get past the Mercedes yet.
Yeah. All right, Brennan is, I think, starting to pile a little bit of pressure on as we come up to the point where the drivers think about making their pit stops. This is usually sort of the end of the early race lull, isn't it, Chaz, where the drivers have been working together, and then as they realise, oh, time for pit stops, they want to then decide to prioritise the track position, which is, I think, the smart thing to do, isn't it, really? Work together and then stab them in the back.
Yeah, it's basically a way of saying thank you for sort of towing me around this entire race and providing me with slipstream. I'm now going to undercut you and disappear over the horizon. Bye. And that's just how it works in racing sometimes. Guy Edwards now on the back of Nils Coren. What's left of the right rear of that Aston Martin certainly doesn't look very happy, does it? That rear corner of that car after the earlier dramas. Nils in 12th position. Not having the championship start to remember. But then again, let's remember last season. Round 1 at Laguna Seca, he barely scored any points at all. And then came through to win the championship in fantastic fashion. He retired, well, didn't retire from the first race, but barely scored any points in the first race. And then he won the following 4, I believe, with the second round of the season being his first win in the championship. As just in front there, Dominic Brennan had a look on Ian Pfeiffer. He's starting to get impatient now, and he's showing the nose of this Beamer. Really wants to try and get past that Mercedes. But watch what Ian does here. Ian's going to put the car in the middle of the road, maybe? No, he doesn't feel as under threat this time from Dom Brennan. So he doesn't defend as hard as he usually is. So,
Yeah, and you can see Jake Cranston, he's not really looking to pile any pressure on himself. You can see that those two are going to battle. He doesn't want to force Dominic to go defensive because then he'll lose track with Ian. I think Jake senses that if Dominic makes the move on Ian, Jake can also probably make the move in Ian at the same breath. But look at this now as Niels Goss sees a gap up on the inside. Jake Cranstone goes the long way around, but then with the inside line for this next long left-hander, he should be able to hang on to 11th place. Going to open up the final corner, but all the other drivers do as well. Don't fancy any moves up on the inside. A little bit of a blink out, connection issues again for Nils Court. As Daniel Parron-Smith comes in early, committing, by the looks of things, to a two-strop strategy, whereas everyone else out on the circuit is continuing on. Ayrton Williams and Simon Povey still going in the lead of the race. Williams actually dropped back a little bit, but actually on that last lap he managed to gain over a second on Simon.
Yeah, he really did. Things are shifting around quite a lot in this middle part of the race, but I did say before, didn't we, that Daniel Parron-Smith was going to be one of the first ones in because he's had no slipstream, nobody to follow. John Barnes also in, Chris Jennings in the pit lane in his Mercedes as well. The three of them just getting into their respective boxes now. Interesting to see Daniel Parent-Smith went up on the jacks for tyres, and he's not even had the longest stop here. John Barnes also heading back out on track. I think some of them do tend to take a couple of tyres, don't they, Ed?
Yeah,
they've said before that
fronts.
yeah, just to make sure that they've got that front end bite, and the rears, as long as you haven't slid them too much over the course of the first half of the race, the rears should be okay.
Yeah, so other circuits, if it's very sort of heavy on the sort of outside tyres, you can sometimes take just like a sort of row of tyres on one side, but mainly the drivers do tend to focus on doing basically a pair of tyres at the front, because that's just the ones that tend to get the most amount of wear come through. Is anyone going to come into the pits from this trio? Yes, it is, and it is going to be the McLaren of Guy Edwards. We heard earlier, wasn't it, the McLarens will struggle to make the fuel last. While they can be quick over a single lap, they aren't so good at saving the fuel. So Guy Edwards coming into the pits, essentially meaning that nearly every single McLaren is committing to two-stop strategy, apart from potentially Callum Brandt, who I think is able to carry on and make it to the halfway race distance. Yes, he is. So Callum Brandt, one of the only drivers in the McLaren who's able to make it to halfway race distance and commit to the one-stop, which, to be fair, makes Aiton Williams' drive all the more impressive, that while he hasn't had a single car to slipstream off of.
Tem in the background, off and in the wall. Matthias Tem has had contact with Taylor Adams, and the front left of the BMW is broken. That is championship leader in trouble coming into the final sector here. That is, I've not seen the car that broken before, and Taylor Adams is in the wall. He's bounced off the barrier. Toby Johns just avoids him. That is Dan McCauley trying to come through as well. Oh, Taylor needs to, well, he's trying to sort of stay out of the way, I think, and just get it round the final corner. The car is not turning. Right. No, that front left is properly broken. He's going to have to Austin Powers it. And fair play to him, that's good commitment. But Taylor will be absolutely gutted with that one. What on earth happened there? Is Tem going to hit the tyre wall? Oh no.
Oh, yes, there is.
Oh, that is devastating. That happened so fast, didn't it? Look at
this. Yeah, you can actually see, I think Taylor saw it happen as well. He turns in a little bit early as well by following. Yeah. You actually see that he follows the same line of Matthias Tem, backs out of the corner, still hits the barrier a little bit.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing that he can do, and it's just rotten luck for Matthias as well. That little mistake right at the end of a very impressive stint sees him drop all the way back down the order. Simon Povey, even though he hasn't been able to slipstream anybody, he's been able to really save the fuel.
And Lewis Ward was in.
It was so impressive for Aiton Williams as well, actually, that he hadn't had anyone to slipstream off of as well yet. He, from the lead of the race, comes in and out. First of the drivers who has pitted. Lewis Ward came into the pits. Then McCauley comes out of the pits as well. Just ahead, I think, of Daniel Parent-Smith, but Dan came in earlier. I think he's committing to a two-stop, so he's going to drop back down from the 7th position that he finds himself in at the moment.
Well, let's not forget Dan was behind him earlier. Dan was behind Daniel Parent-Smith in the early stage of the race, so he's not only jumped him in the stops, but he's going to do one less as well.
Now McCauley's dropping down the order, actually. Has he had a connection, or has he dropped down behind Parent-Smith and... what's gone on here?
Oh, he's lost it. He's had a spin. He's had a drama there. Dan McCauley has come to a stop. Daniel Parent-Smith goes through. Let's see from on board. Is he going to just spin it over the curb? Oh, it's on the downshift. And it's going to go, into the tyre wall. How did Parent-Smith not hit him there? Wow.
Did he kiss him a little bit? Let's have a look, see.
I tell you what, there's one more view we need to look at this from. I mean, he's already kissed the wall himself there, but let's go slow-mo on this. Dan McCauley loses it just in front. And that is how close it was, everybody. Wow. Close stuff. Dan McCauley back up to speed now. Jake Cranstone carrying on, by the way. So he has done another extra lap over everybody else and is the only one not to have pitted now in this race. We'll show you the pit stops on the left-hand side. Everybody has been in the pits. Dan McCauley is showing us out of the race, unfortunately. Where on earth has he gone? Has he had another issue? What on earth? Don Brennan has gone past him.
Did that hit into the barrier maybe damage his suspension? He's had to tow into the pits. But that might be the only reason why I've seen Dan McCauley out of the running.
There he is. He did mention earlier tonight, by the way, that he's had an issue with his game crashing in Sector 2. I'm good friends with Dan, and we were having a chat on Discord earlier today, and he said in the middle sector, when it was rendering something in, his sim was completely crashing. It didn't say that he jumped to the pits or anything, so I think he just disappeared. He was still running behind Dominic Brennan here. How strange. We did look at it a few times.
Final sector now. This is Sector 3 that he's coming into.
He's got Nils Core behind him. Into the hairpin. Oh, and he's hit the inside wall and then it's gone. It's not the incident limit, surely.
Sure.
Can't have been the incident limit or anything.
He hits the wall and then he goes instantly. I don't know. Did that cause like a sim crash potentially? Dan McCauley, it said his connection dropped due to download packet loss from the session. He's reconnected, so I don't know if that somehow caused this connection to crash somehow. Very strange, but what's not strange is Ayrton Williams' performances so far this race see him up into the lead of the race still, ahead of Simon Povey, but Simon is not miles behind him, is he? Currently 1.8 seconds, the gap between first and second. Someone's actually been able to build a bit more of a gap to Lewis Ward. They were essentially glued to one another. Now that gap has increased to about 2.5 seconds. So it's comfortable for Simon at the moment, but he's dropping back a little bit from Ayrton Williams up ahead of him as hit into the barrier there by Mark Johnson. Pushing a little bit too hard, I think, but luckily it was into the softer tyre barriers, so he shouldn't have any suspension damage. Meanwhile, Matthias Tent charging back up through the field. 23rd. Makes up a position not far up the points, and with other drivers who were expecting to make further pit stops, could still find himself by making a single stop strategy work with a top 10 finish.
Nils Core and Dom Brennan right together on the circuit. These two both fighting over championship points in Season 4 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Great to have them both in very different cars once again. Dom was of course in the Porsche last season, and Nils was actually in the BMW now that he's chasing as well, which is very exciting to see. The two of them glued together right behind Jake Cranstone, who has of course jumped the pair of them in the pits and is now in front into the later stages of the race. 25 minutes to go, or 24 and a half now, here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge here on Chaz Draycott Media. Thank you everybody for watching so far. Thanks to the sponsors as well. As Dan McCauley back out on circuit now, Ed.
Yeah, Dan McCauley, good to see him back out there. Just having to be careful, obviously, with the rejoin. See him now back up on the circuit, which is great to see. Currently down in last place, but continuing on, never giving up, which is what we love to see here. Jake Cranston, he's not going to be giving up on this, and I think, to be fair, from the amount he saved in that first stop, he doesn't really need to save any fuel. He can go completely flat out, and that could be a real benefit for him if he's able to catch up to Taylor Adams, Tom Stanley, the cars up ahead that we will expect to be saving fuel to make it till the end of the race.
Just looking at the times to see what sort of lap times everybody's been doing and see if there's any standouts, but looks like everyone in the front couple of positions very similar, although actually no, you know what, Daniel Parron-Smith and Tom Stanley last time round were about 6 and 8 tenths of a second respectively slower than our race leader Ayrton Williams. He is not hanging about. This Aston Martin and Ayrton have both been really going well hand in hand, but you've got to wonder now, are we seeing Simon Povey's ultimate pace now, because he saved fuel at the start of the race and now he's going great guns because he knows he can make it to the end. We know Simon's good at this. You know better than anyone.
Yeah. He did go very well managing the race early doors, and then he does like to sort of unload with both barrels. But I do think that he still has to save a little bit because he had a shorter pit stop, which was what allowed him to catch up to Ayrton Williams. Looking at the pit time, it was around about 1.5 seconds faster from Simon compared to Ayrton, which I think is why we've seen that gap come down the way it has. At the moment, the two very evenly matched for pace. It was only a few hundredths of a second between them both on their respective laps, both last time round and the time before. So it's essentially going to be a matter of consistency, and if it's a battle of consistency, I'm going to be back in Simon because he's been so familiar with his cars for so long. Again, not so familiar with the Mercedes, but knows these GT4s like the back of his hand, and he was already consistent when this championship started. He's only just gotten stronger and stronger.
This is Callum Brandt in the McLaren. Unfortunately, down in 21st place at the moment is Callum. And currently on the back of Stephen Codman. That is a championship point scoring position in front of him. Bit of a different story this week to what we saw last time. Callum was absolutely flying at Indianapolis. His pace was incredible, and he was able to take that McLaren a lot longer than some of the other drivers. And now he finds himself in 21st after not quite the smoothest of runs, although he did his fastest lap of the race last time round. Lewis Ward has done a purple sector on the previous lap, by the way, so he's been flying. Simon Povey was a 10th of a second quicker than Ayrton Williams last time. But Ayrton, I mean, you mentioned consistency, Ed. Ayrton's been brilliant in this race so far. He had that one mistake earlier on in the race, but he's been absolutely spot on for the rest of it. And you'd be, I mean, anyone would think you were absolutely spot on going for Simon, to be fair. We've seen him prove himself multiple times, as Simon Price has had a drama. Oh, whoa. What on earth happened there to Simon Price? It's like the wheel stayed completely right. It just didn't unload.
It looks, yeah, like some sort of hardware issue for a moment. This is Mark Johnson. Oh, it's just over the bumps.
Yeah, it's horrible
on the inside.
corner.
It's those nasty curves, isn't it? Like you say at the start of the broadcast, there's two different types of curb that you come over. Oh, and trying to get it turned back around. He misjudges it a little bit, tries to light up the rears, but the traction control kicks in just at the moment where you don't want it to.
Yeah, that's the worst thing, is these GT4 cars have quite intermittent traction control, and it's not always the best to light up the rears. Daniel Kelleher saying, loving the commentary, thanks very much. He sent us a great quality stream. Really glad you're enjoying the show, guys. It's an always, no, English. It's always an absolute pleasure to bring you the show here with the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We not only broadcast the series, but organise it as well with the guys at SRM, Andy Marston, and we are very happy to bring you another series of this. It's been amazing fun. And Season 5 has just exploded into action. Any one of the sort of top 10 drivers at any point could win this race and could win the previous round of the, or could have won the previous round of the championship. There is no knowing who's going to finish where in this series. Yeah. Best field we've had. Really
impressive, and I think it's also a sign that a lot of the newcomers we've had as well have really gelled with the season and the sort of community vibe as well that we've gotten. And just seeing as well people like Ayrton Williams, who have basically, they're having their second race in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, already adapting as well to how they like to race and learning from mistakes earlier on, not quite being familiar with the strategy, all of a sudden planning out the single stop, sees him very comfortably in the lead of the race and on track for his first victory on just his second race here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. But he's going to have to do it the hard way, because Simon Povey, a real formidable force in this championship, is his biggest threat, and you can just see a 10th of a second gained on that last lap in favour of the Mercedes in second. Simon really trying to reel in Ayrton in the lead of the race.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Simon won the very first season of the championship up against our very own Ed May as well. What a campaign it was. It was really entertaining. Before Ed,
I've got my excuses for it. I had exams, my uni last year, missed about 3 rounds.
I'll let him have that one. I mean, to be fair, Ed was formidable as well. They constantly traded victories. If you haven't watched the first season, go back and watch it. Not quite at the high quality of broadcast that we're at now, but I tell you what, we had so much fun with it. It was epic. And then Ed was graceful to join me in the commentary box as well, and has been a fantastic commentary partner since then, and knows the series and the drivers inside out. It's great to have you in the box with me, Ed, and shame not to have you back out on track. But Simon and Lewis, between them, 3 championships. Simon won the first season, Lewis won seasons 2 and 3, and then Nils Core, of course, our reigning champion at the moment. But yeah, Ayrton Williams, only 2 races in the championship, and he's not even completed the second one yet, and he is leading the way for Satellite Racing Blue, one of the absolute stars of the series so far. It's great to see that the pedigree from Satellite Racing coming through as well. Obviously, teammate of Nils Core, reigning champion. It just goes to show they don't just employ anybody, this lot.
Yeah, but Simon Povey's really going for it. You can see that he's gained a few more tenths on Ayrton last time by.
Fastest lap of the race.
Tenths, fastest lap as well. By I think just a few hundredths of a second, but still counts for Simon. He's really attacking these corners now, hungry. But okay, you can try as much as you want. You've just got to be on the sort of better side of things, because if you make one mistake by pushing that a bit too hard, the barriers will be meeting you very quickly. For now, Simon controlling this brilliantly and charging up to the tail end of the Aston Martin in the lead. I wonder though if it's just a case of Ayrton now starting to stretch his legs, because just over the course of that first sector, Ayrton's pulled out a couple of tenths now.
Yeah, it's going one way then the other at certain sectors, so we'll keep our eye on it. Daniel asking what the next race is, or where the next race is at, and it's going to be at Watkins Glen in a week's time for rounds 3 and 4 of the championship, and there is potential that it's going to rain as well at the next round of the championship, so we're going to keep our eye out for that. It's going to be very exciting. Our first sprint race meeting of the season, and the first time ever that the championship has had probable rain in it. We of course had the SRM Californian 250 at Laguna Seca between seasons as a special event where we raced in the rain, and it was colossally exciting. So to get that with sprint racing involved as well, we're sure there's going to be a bit of mayhem, but it's going to be a lot of fun to get there and see how the drivers cope. Because to be fair, Ed, I mean, we've both driven the GT4 cars in the wet. They're good fun when they slide around, but it's mighty tricky.
Yeah, it's very impressive just to see drivers out there again, like you say, mighty tricky, but I'm very excited for the next race at Watkins Glen. Is, like you say, a circuit that does quite often get changeable conditions, both in real life, so that's, I think, been reflected in scheduling for this season. It was cool. Look at this now, trying to charge back up through the order after the setback he had earlier on in this race. Again, going side by side now through the fountain.
Oh,
but
lovely.
This time, you can just see, I think it was more of a case of the BMW backing off just a touch. Don Brennan realising that I think the move had already been done by Nils, and that fighting it would just throw him further offline and potentially see him into the barriers. So backed off, but now can instead try and work with Nils to catch back up to Jake Cramstone in his Porsche that's been going very impressively. Looking at the lap times from Jake at the moment, if he's been able to make any headway at all on Taylor Adams, and that last lap, not quite. They're roughly on the same sort of pace, those two, but they are reeling in Tom Stanley in the Press Standard Nomad car at least.
Yeah, Tom Stanley up into 5th place outright at the moment, having a really solid run of things. Started 10th at the beginning of the race. Taylor Adams is exactly where he qualified, in 6th position. Again, just shows you, doesn't it, we're not going to get any runaway winners this season. He started the championship with a race victory. We didn't know right until the end of the race that he was even going to win the first race, but he and his teammate Matt Slight made the strategy work. Matt, having dramas at the start of the race, has really thrown him back, but this is another exciting one. Simon Povey's done a purple sector 2 on the previous lap. He's doing 24.9s. Ayrton Williams only 100th of a second slower last time, so he's starting to respond. There's great battles going on all over the place. Toby Johns here just in front of his fellow McLaren driver Callum Brandt, as Callum gets very close into the hairpin. But thanks once again to the championship sponsors, Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes, and our 4th sponsor, Bespoke Shelters, jumping back on board for another season. Very grateful to everybody involved there. And thanks as well to Andy Marston from Sim Racing Magazine, when you've got his blessing to run this under the SRM banner, and the branding certainly works and it looks lovely. So, into the final quarter of the race now, Ed. We said it'd fly, and it really has, but
Yeah,
what do you expect now?
Oh, I'm expecting a few more fireworks. As we can see, I think at last lap, Ayrton Williams and Simon Povey did nearly identical lap times, but that gap has really come down now between Ayrton and Simon. It's about 1.5 seconds. You can see that Simon is a lot more ever present in that shot, but we go to this one because Taylor Adams is trying to fend off Tom Stanley. In fact, actually, I think he's just gotten ahead, hasn't he, of Tom there in the Press Standard Nomad car. Just about moved on by Taylor. Looking at the pit stop times as well, Taylor did go a lap longer. I think Tom might just be able to make it to the end of the race with a bit more fuel saving. That last lap though, Simon was impressively quick there, a 24.72 again. Just a few hundredths shy of his previous best in the fastest lap of the race so far. It's not that Ayrton Williams is slowing up or making mistakes, it's just a case of Simon Povey really pushing it, and so is Taylor at this moment. You saw him just have a tap with the barriers, but he's just tried as much as he can do to now break away from that Press Standard Nomad Aston Martin.
It's a little touch like that though that can just knock a wheel off kilter and give you a meatball flag, a black and orange flag. That means you have to come in and get the car fixed. We'll see cars crabbing as well if you just take too many liberties like that. The tyres are worn at the end of the race, especially the rears if they don't tend to change them, so they will be sliding around a little bit more. As Toby Johns very close to the wall there, as through goes Callum Brandt. He gains 18th position. Not something I thought I'd be saying tonight or ever, But Callum recovering at this stage. Ian Pfeiffer still in front of Guy Edwards a bit further up the road as well. John Barnes and Lee Berridge, the two boosted McLarens.
You've seen the time up there from Williams.
That is just disgusting. 1:24.66 from Ayrton Williams. Fastest lap of the race.
He's pushing so hard.
I leant back in my chair. Simon Povey also did a 1:24.7 last time, so he's flying, but these boys are really on it now. We ought to go on board.
Though, how disappointing that's got to be for Simon. You've got like no response at that point. You've done one of your fastest laps of the race so far. I think that's his third fastest lap. Thinks, right, this time I'm going to gain on that son of a gun up ahead. No,
nice.
Aaron Williams, 10th faster. And that's just a gut punch. I had so many times like that when I was racing against Simon. I put in a quick lap and thought, right, here we go, chasing him down now. No, never mind. Simon's just done his fastest lap of the race as well, and he's now 2/10 up the road.
Ayrton Williams
what can you do?
I don't know. I mean, it's great to see that, you know, with this new crop of drivers, we've got drivers that can go toe-to-toe with people like Simon Povey. You know, everyone that knows Simon realises how quick he is and how unbelievably fast he can be over one lap, and then somehow repeatedly do that in a race. He's like a robot sometimes, but Ayrton Williams, you have to say, he's just
bogged down a bit though, just coming out of that corner. That's the Aston Martin traction control kicking in.
Yeah, he's really lobbing this thing around. Let's have a look at the lap times now as they cross the line. Ayrton 1:24.923, Simon 1:24.8, so he's gained a tenth of a second there on him. This is such a great exchange of lap times between these two. This is just awesome to watch. And Ayrton really stamping his authority on becoming a new hard charger for the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, taking on the likes of Simon Povey. We will eventually do a fact sheet, by the way, of how many wins and podiums and so on that every driver has ever had in the series. I'd be really interested to see where we're at with that, because I'd love to see how many more wins Simon has than anybody else. Lee Berridge in the McLaren having to do a second stop. We're going to see a few of these, aren't we, Ed? Some drivers are going to drop down here.
Yeah, I think so. This is one of the drivers that I think mentioned earlier likely need to pit again just due to an early pit stop. It's Lee Berridge that comes in. Teammate John Barnes might be able to make it, but I think he'll probably have to come in as well. Dennis Van Beelen. He's a driver that should be able to make it till the end of the race, as will the driver he's battling with at this moment in time, Matt Slight, General Sim Racing. Matt Slight, I think we saw, was one of the drivers caught up in that opening sort of lap incident, wasn't it, that saw a majority of the field caught up, slowed way down, but it's done great to fight back and only lose 5 places since the start of this race. Actually, no, was it Matt Slight who was involved? Actually, no, it was Matt Slight, I think, involved as well in the incident, wasn't it, between himself and Matthias Tem, if I remember rightly.
No, that was Taylor Adams.
No, I was right. I was right the first time.
Yeah, Taylor Adams was involved in that one. I'm surprised he's still inside the top 10, to be honest with you. That's a miracle in itself, because he must have got in and used that as the chance to then get the fast repair and get the pit stop out of the way.
Oh, armour up in front as well. Simon Povey's had a very slow lap. 1:27.23. He's dropped way behind now. He's got
3.3.
Well, if we go on board with Simon, we can actually see the tail end of the Capri Sun livery.
Oh, for God's sake, Simon. Not even Simon Povey, I mean Simon Price.
Yeah.
With his Lunchbox Legends livery. Oh, well, thank God for that. He's jumped out of the way. But you know what? That's the best way to go about that. Simon says, you know what, stuff it. I'm jumping over here. Makes it very clear what he was doing. And that's exactly how you want lap traffic to be. So, fair play. John Barnes, Toby Johnson, John Roberts, all in McLarens, all in the pit lane, unfortunately. The downfall of the McLaren being that you can't really save fuel in it around here enough to get completely through.
Yeah. I think Callum was able to make it, surprisingly, which is quite impressive to see. But we know how Callum and RD Simsport in general are very good at planning strategies out and making them stop work. I think it was actually... Was it the Hungaroring where we saw, I think, the RD Simsport drivers sort of be, I think, the first ones to pull out the single stop strategy?
It was. That amazing race with Callum Brandt and Christopher Smith scoring. I think they got a 1-2 finish at the Hungaroring in McLaren and Mercedes and BMW in the
I think it
third
was
season.
Another car as well actually seemed to make it
John
at
Roberts.
the same time but fell behind. It was John Roberts, for Boosted Motorsport. I think in the Aston Martin as well, wasn't it? I think that time around.
I think he was, yeah.
Good at saving the fuel back then, and still seems to be now at the moment, because Ayrton Williams, without any slipstream, seems to be able to make his single stop strategy work out in the lead of the race, has a bit more of a buffer as well, so doesn't need to push as hard. It's all basically now on Simon Povey, so push like the devil. Let's see if it can catch him up again. You can just hear a scraping of the tyres as every single time these guys go through a corner. Chaz seems to have kittens.
I do.
It's just so scary, isn't it, though, when you see just from outside the car how close these drivers are getting to the barriers. I think inside the car, you're in your own little bubble. You don't really notice it at times, but from the angles we get, it's scary stuff.
Yeah, we see the specific millimetres and pixels between car and wall, and we get an idea of it. The drivers, they get muscle memory, they get used to where they can be without hitting it. You can see Guy Edwards sort of urgently trying to get past Ian Pfeiffer at this point, because he knows that this man, Matt Slight, is closing down on him in the BMW. Little lick of flame there from the back of the McLaren. There's again little kiss of the wall there by Ian. That slows him down slightly. There's a change of position in the background as Matthias Tem has got past Stephen Codman in the Wally Ams Racing Mercedes. Matthias recovering now up to 17th place. But these guys in a little trio going around towards the end of the lap. You can see that the rears on these cars sliding around a little bit more now in the later stages, because they've mainly going to have taken front tyres and have to just manage the wheel spinners. Look how close. I mean, it looked like he was inside the McLaren there, did Matt Slight, but BM's got a big long nose on it. I'm surprised they didn't make contact.
Yeah, Ayrton Williams as well, by not pushing as hard, is actually losing a little bit of time, but he's got the gap to manage, which is, I think, the main important part of this race now is gap management. You can afford to sort of add a few extra tenths of a second to your lap times by just going that little bit safer. But Simon Povey is charging very hard at this moment in time. Again, underneath the 1:25 barriers yet again for Simon. Really just chucking everything as well. I think on that last lap as well, it did encounter a little bit of traffic, which is why he's maybe slowed down just a touch. As you can see, well, a lot of lap traffic up ahead of him. He's going to have to hope that he gets clear of this sooner rather than later.
Simon on multiple occasions there in that final sector alone, getting really close to the walls, and he had a slide in the background when we cut to him. It was all very on the edge. But yeah, Ayrton Williams has Martin Kenyon in the Jelly Babies McLaren just in front of him right now, hoping that he won't get in the way in any respect. I think Martin will keep an eye on the relative and jump out of the way when he gets an easy place to do so. I think out of the next corner is possibly one of the best places on the circuit for that. 4.5 minutes left to go here in round 2 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge.
Lovely stuff by Martin.
Yep, great stuff that by Martin Kenyon. Moves out of the way. Ooh, a bit close to him on the brakes, but trying not to lose too much of his own time there. And the next car is going to be the BMW of Kim Such for Ayrton Williams to lap. And then just in front of that is Rob Sutherland. Those two only a second apart for position on circuit, so they won't want to give up too much because of their own battle that's going on, but they're outside of point scoring positions, so maybe they'll consider that when they think about moving over. Let's have a look at what the lap times are though when they next get to the line. Ayrton Williams just heading into the final corner now. Love that shot of the hairpin as they head all the way around. Kenyon's gone deep. It's not going to affect Simon Povey though. He wasn't close enough to him for that to become an issue. Could have very easily been an issue for him though. So Williams across the line. He does a 1:25.5. Simon Povey does a 1:25.5, and he's actually slower on that lap. So Ayrton Williams opens up the gap a little bit, maybe a couple of hundredths. As Martin Kenyon late on the brakes there, scares Simon a little bit. Simon really nails that curve. That made a horrendous noise at my end. Goodness me.
Yeah, big that curve, but seems to be fine. Don't think you get any slowdown penalties for cutting it, even if you do it by that much. As Daniel Parent-Smith coming into the pits, we did see him as, I think, one of the earliest pitters. So it makes sense that he comes in to serve his second and final stop. Just a quick splash and dash. We're getting back underway. Jake Cranstone can follow him now. You're only in 5th place and going to defend a little bit, but from Tom Stanley at no score. But it was actually Jake Cranstone, I think, has now gotten ahead of these two throughout all of the action so far this race. I think he did find himself behind at least Tom Stanley earlier.
Yeah, he was,
I think, trying to break away from Neil Score, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was behind Tom Stanley and even, I think, Dan McCauley earlier on as well. So he's gained time on both of them in the pits, and these guys since then haven't been able to get back through. Neil Score stuck right behind us.
What's happened here?
Simon
Povey's
Povey.
dropped back.
Yeah, Simon's gone down to 3rd position. Simon's had a drama here. Lewis Ward has gone past him. He was already right up with him at this stage. What on earth has gone on there? Is that a slowdown penalty for Simon Povey?
He's dropped back quite a lot. It might have been. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to... Don't know where you could potentially pick it up. Maybe on the...
Hang on. He's underfueled.
He's massively underfueled.
Yeah. I was going to say, surely he wouldn't be able to make it to the end on what he had. Simon Povey, not enough fuel for the end. So that is going to hand Ayrton Williams a massive lifeline. 6 seconds in the lead right now. The Australian driver coming up on Rob Sutherland, lap traffic. Rob seemingly doesn't want to get out of the way. He makes it a little bit difficult for Ayrton by staying to the outside line instead of pulling over on the straight. Guy Edwards is back in the pits in the McLaren. It's not so much a surprise when we see a McLaren back in, unfortunately for them. But
I think it's going to really be a struggle now for Simon because it's going to go an extra lap. We're going to see Ayrton Williams come over the line for another time. We're going to get the white flag this time by. So Simon, he's really going to have to struggle to see this until the end of the race. And you can see he's going to lose out now to Taylor Adams and Jake Cranstone. You can see several cars lining up to get by. This is the lap traffic that he's letting through now. Just at the tail end, I think you can see the BMW of Taylor Adams getting ready just to overtake him.
Yeah, Taylor just coming into the previous corner. I wonder whether Simon will have a splash and dash, whether he'll nip into the pits. No, he's going to go for one more lap.
Yeah, he should be able to go. He's going to have to save a huge amount, but we can see now Ayrton Williams, he's seen the white flag, and this is just the end of the race. He's still pushing hard, though, as if he's got Simon breathing down his neck, but it is instead going to be Lewis Ward to join him on the podium. Simon Povey could find himself not even getting third because, by the looks of things, Taylor Adams is right there now, really closing up.
This has been another very exciting race here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, and it is not quite over yet. Still half a lap to go for our race leader Ayrton Williams, and a lap to go for a lot of the field as well. But Ayrton has done an amazing job arriving on the scene here in the series, doing a great job in the first round of the championship near the front at the very start of the race, as Ian Piper still trying to defend from Matt Slight. Matt's going to try and go around the outside into turn one. Can he get this done side by side into here? Ian's got the inside line. Matt's got in too hot and he's hit the barrier, and Dennis Van Beelen's going to try and come through as well. Doesn't get it done this time round, but we go to the race leader because he was a debutant at Indianapolis, and he's going to be a winner in just his second appearance in the series. Put your hands together in chat, everybody, because Ayrton Williams wins round 2 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge from Long Beach. What a drive that is. Epic stuff. Lewis Ward back to how we know him. Second place for him. And can Simon Povey somehow hold on to third position? I think he's going to do it. There's been a drama there for John Roberts, but Simon somehow scores a podium with that. Very well done to him. He certainly played the hard yards there. And then Taylor Adams next up in 4th place. Jake Cranstone's going to get 5th at the line, is he? Nils Kaur with a bit of a drama in there as well. Nils Kaur finishes in 6th. Tom Stanley next up. Good top 10 for him. Dominic Brennan, this is a much improved result on last week, isn't it, Ed? Wow.
Yeah, very, very good to see Spomtech CDM Esports getting some strong points on the board as well. Simon Povey up there in 3rd place. Dominic Brennan there as well. Astonishingly, Regenta Sim Racing, after the great work they've done, I think only one car is able to score points for them, and that's Taylor Adams.
Yes, indeed. Taylor Adams, well, finishing in 4th position, and yeah, Matt Slight finishing 10th.
Oh, finishing 10th, are they?
So he did recover very well, actually, considering he was involved in that incident. Lovely to see Lewis Ward back up there at the top end of the order as well, but you cannot say enough good words about Ayrton Williams and that drive. He was pretty untouchable throughout that one, wasn't he, Ed? It was really difficult for anybody to get anywhere near him.
So impressive. His consistency waned in parts, but he was able to make the strategy work, and again, that's by saving the fuel without anyone to help him as well. Just makes it all the more impressive. Wow, what a way to announce yourself, though, isn't it? On the scene, really impressed people. Made people stand up and take notice of him at Indianapolis, and then he's just gone on and put an even bigger marker down now for the rest of the season.
Definitely has. Here is your result then from round 2 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Ayrton Williams for Satellite Racing Blue takes the race victory, with Lewis Ward and Simon Povey adding to their already impressive tally of podiums. Simon just not quite able to make it to the end on the amount of fuel, at least at flat chat anyway. Taylor Adams was next up, with Jake Cranstone getting a 5th place, with Nils Core in 6th ahead of Tom Stanley. Great stuff for him tonight. Dominic Brennan back to how we've seen him before in 8th place. Good drive from him. Ian Pfeiffer and Matt Slight complete the top 10. Yes, I know the music stopped. It's fine. Dennis Van Beelen 11th, with Ben Chalcraft in 12th. Stephen Burns was 13th for Top of the Pops ahead of Callum Brandt, who recovered to 14th. Daniel Parron-Smith, even with 2 pit stops, was in 15th in the end ahead of Matthias Tem and Stephen Codman, with John Barnes in 18th place. Lee Berridge and Guy Edwards complete the points scorers, with Ben Idris Abdullahi just missing out, and then the drivers that were 1 lap down or more were Toby Johns, Rob Sharp, John Roberts, Toby Ward, Chris Jennings, Mark Johnson, with Rob Sutherland 2 laps down. Same with Martin Kenyon and Dan McCauley. Kim Such and Simon Price complete the field. So, let's see if there's anybody we can have a quick chat with, shall we, Ed? We'll go back in time. We will slow things down eventually when the sim gets there, and we'll see if there is anybody waiting to have a chat. But no is the answer. Aha, we do have a gentleman waiting for a chat. We'll just see if any of our podium finishers make it. And we do tend to prioritise them, but wow, what a race that was for Mr. Williams. Ayrton was absolutely on it tonight, and even from qualifying to the race, he just kept up great pace.
He really did, and it was just great to see these drivers right up the very sharp end, giving us a great fight. But there was so much battling in the mid-pack as well, wasn't it? And it was great to see some of those drivers just like after maybe getting thrown slightly off kilter at the start of the race.
Yeah, definitely. It was certainly a race that was a bit more complicated than usual. It didn't look like it, though, for Ayrton Williams. Ayrton, welcome to the booth, my friend. You must be absolutely buzzing with that, mate. What a race, and what a great way to stamp your authority on the championship.
Yeah, that was awesome. I haven't led anything in iRacing or with sim racing in so long. I was shaking like most of the race. It was there was some nerves for sure, but yeah, I was able to fuel save and just keep the gap pretty much the whole race, which was awesome. It was a really good feeling.
I was going to say, I imagine winning at Long Beach is pretty special because it's such a tight and twisty circuit. Very difficult just to get a clean lap in. But what a place to be shaking around, mate. I mean, the Aston's not easy either. Did it feel like it clicked with this sort of circuit tonight, though?
Yeah, it worked wonders here. Like, pole was... Yeah, I could have even gone faster in pole, but I made a small mistake. Had I not taken pole, I don't think I would have been leading. I think it would have been pretty hard to overtake anyone here, but yeah, it felt good. Like, it hooked up and it just went every corner. Yeah, it was easy to fuel save. It was, I wasn't having any issues. I had a near run-in with a lapped car kind of halfway through the race, which was partly my bad. I assumed they were going to move off the racing line, and I've gone to the racing line, and a bit of a front to rear contact, but luckily no big crash. I didn't spin them. I didn't give them a massive whack, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing, it's another element to racing around this place, isn't it, really? It's not, it's never straightforward at somewhere like Long Beach, but that was a mega drive, mate. What's it been like getting used to these guys in this field? Because it was already a strong pack anyway before some of you newcomers turned up.
Great. In all honesty, I ran Ivra last year with Niels and Ryan Walker, and
awesome.
I must be honest, this has been, the driving standards here are better. I'm not being taken out all the time. I'm not being dive bombed. It's really clean racing. The lap cars are awesome. They really are. They're really respectful. It's just awesome, man. It's so good to race in this league. It's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun.
Well, that's what we like to hear, mate. And it's a great friendly atmosphere behind the scenes as well, isn't it, in the Discord? Everyone comes together, and we realise here that we're all in it for the same thing, don't we?
Yeah, it's seriously, it's great to have a chat with everyone. It's good to be able to, congratulate people for their wins, and, everyone's happy to have a talk about the race. It's just good fun. It really is a lot of fun. These guys are great to race with as well. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Well, that was going to be my next question. We go to Watkins Glen next time for the first sprint races of the season. Potential rain on the horizon as well. How are you feeling about heading there with all that to think about?
I I don't very much like rain, so it's going to be interesting for sure. I've only done the Sebring 12-hour, and that is all my rain experience. I did not have a fun time there, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I feel like rain, but if it's in part of the league, I've got to do it. So I'm going to put in some time to get used to rain, and we'll see where I end up. I'm not crazy hopeful for the rain, but who knows? I might be able to put a good race in. But that's my main thing. I just want to finish every race good places. That's the main objective at this current moment.
Fair play. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Ed. And is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to for this first win?
Yeah, well, Satellite, of course, and our sponsors, Dr. Dabber and Illis Engineering. They are awesome group of people. They are the best.
Smashing stuff. Well, very well done, mate. Great to have you on the roster of race winners in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, and we'll speak to you hopefully again at Watkins Glen. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, guys.
Well, fantastic guy, Ed. Really lovely guy as well. Really sort of highlights how fun and positive this league is, and it just goes to show as well that it's nerve-wracking for anybody to lead these races, and he seemingly made it look easy out there.
Yeah, it was so impressive from him, and he, like I say, I'd be very surprised to hear that he was a driver that was not quite comfortable, because it looked very nice out there for him, nice and measured, and seemed to just take it as if he was a seasoned pro of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. But we're certain that, well, if he was nervous before, hopefully those jitters are well behind him, and now he can really focus on trying to charge for a championship title.
Absolutely. Big points on the board, and nearly a top 10 for this driver. Dennis Van Beelen joins us in the box. Dennis, great to have you back again, mate. That looked like a lot of hard work out there tonight in the Aston Martin. You were right in the thick of it.
It was so close to that top 10, which was definitely the goal. But yeah, after lap 1, I was kind of stuck in the fountain. There was a purple dimmer right in front of me, and that was a good 10 seconds lost, but luckily no damage. And after that first stint, I was targeting a specific fuel count to make sure it's a one-stop. And I'm bad at math, so I completely screwed it up. And my second stint was so horrible, I had to save another lap on top of the lap I was planning to save. So that was just managing. But luckily I could save the pit stop, and that made sure I was in P11. Otherwise I would be down P20 or something if I had to make that other stop.
Yeah, it was certainly a tricky one tonight, because this is a track where, to really be on it, you have to really attack a place like Long Beach, don't you? You have to throw the car at every single corner and be as hard on the throttle as possible. So to fuel save around here feels a bit strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You have to. You can't leave any space. You need to close that space to all the walls all the time, and to just lift. For example, on the turn 1, you're lifting 400 meters, and that just feels wrong. You want to attack this track, but you'll just lose when you take that extra pit stop. It's not worth it, and of course you're stuck. You cannot overtake.
Yeah, it's a close field as well in that regard, isn't it? It's never easy to get past anybody in this pack, and this season, I mean, it's closer than ever. There's always somebody to race with that's half a tenth or a thousandth quicker or slower, isn't there?
It's ridiculous. Like, with the pace I'm currently, I feel like I've improved compared to last season, and I'm just around the same place or even lower, even though I'm definitely driving better. And just this grid this season, it's ridiculous, but it's so good.
I was going to say, as long as you're enjoying yourself, Dennis, that's what we love here, and it certainly seems like a lot of the guys are just really loving how close the field is. But next time we're going to get a bit of a leveler, because we go to the rain at Watkins Glen, or potential rain. How are you feeling about having that?
Ooh, I'm definitely going to have to put in some more practice, especially in the rain. But I do feel confident. I've done a lot of practice in the rain at Zandvoort, although we're not driving there in the rain, but just to get the feeling. Mm-hmm. And I do feel confident, but I just know that the people from Satellite Racing or the Magenta guys in front they're on another level. So I do need to find some time.
Well, it's been fantastic to speak to you again, Dennis, and thank you again for hopping in. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, no one in particular, just the guys on Chicane on the Racing. Ben, my teammate, he had some unfortunate spin on lap 1, I think after some contact, but he's doing a great job. And it's nice to have a proper teammate, and always Nils Score for being a good teammate as well.
Lovely stuff. Well, it's great to speak to you, Dennis. Thank you very much, mate, and we'll hopefully speak to you at some point as the season goes on.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Cheers. You too. Always good to have Dennis back in the box, Ed. He's one of the guys that, especially in the Discord as well, really gets amongst all the fun and the banter, isn't he? He's a real top lad. I think Edward has muted his microphone again.
Yeah. Sorry. Here we go. Yeah, it's great to see Dennis. He's a driver that never shies away from it out on circuit, does he? He likes to get stuck in, and it was great to see that was rewarded today, going up 2 positions just outside the top 10, but give it a few more races and he's definitely going to be fighting up there consistently.
Definitely is, and it's great to see this man back inside the top 10. As I've mentioned a few times over the stream this evening, Tom Stanley joins us in the box. Tom, we've been racing on iRacing together for a mighty long time, mate, but back in the top 10 in this championship, it seems like quite a difficult one this season.
Yeah, it's the first time getting back in the hand of kind of racing now, because I do the engineering side for Nomad now. But yeah, nice to get some rust off myself, getting top 10 in quali, then being able to get them a few positions early ahead is, yeah, really good.
And what was the car like round here? You're actually the third person driving an Aston Martin that we've interviewed, actually, and the other guy said it clicked with this circuit. I think it's the short wheelbase nature of this thing is what would stand out to me as the sort of turning point of why it would be good. But you're the engineer. Why would this car work round here?
Again, I love the Aston Martin GT4 in general. I like Long Beach. It's a good challenge. I enjoy Long Beach. I normally do some testing around here for most cars. You know, it's again, it clicked. I just wish I saved a bit more fuel in the first stint to make it easier on the second one.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think the fuel saving has certainly been an interesting element. I know that some of the drivers literally right now in Discord are discussing the fact that they're not the biggest fans in the world of it, but it's interesting to have a mix of sprint and endurance races in a season, isn't it? It keeps people's minds ticking.
It is. It'll be interesting to see what the sprint race is going to be like next weekend, with the possibility of potential rain. So that's something else that will spice up the racing. But yeah, it'll be good fun with the endurance and sprint races. It's going to be a good mixture of strategy and the endurance, and just go for leather and the sprints.
Well, we certainly look forward to seeing how you get on at Watkins Glen, mate. And of course, with the rain on the horizon as well, it should be quite a spicy one. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we round things up?
Yeah, again, unfortunate for Jamie who couldn't make it, being a teammate for this season. But again, thank you for Presenda Nomad.
Smashing stuff. Great to speak to you, Tom. Thanks very much for jumping in, and we'll hopefully speak to you again as the season goes on. Have a good one.
Will do. Take care, you too.
Cheers. There we go, Tom Stanley of Prestanda Nomad, a team that I've seen a lot of in the past few years here on iRacing. Certainly a fantastic outfit, very professional as well. They really do a good job of sort of documenting all their races and their work on their social media. But one thing we're going to be documenting as this season goes on, Ed, is the rise of Ayrton Williams and some of these newcomers in the series. I mean, we've got Jake Cranstone, Tom Stanley, Ian Pfeiffer. They're all inside the top 10, and it's their first season with us here. They're certainly not hanging about, these boys, are they?
Yeah, and let's not forget Daniel Parent-Smith, his impressive race at the start of this season as well. And while he was fighting up there in the top 10, the strategy was his undoing. If you can just nail that, he's going to be a real force as well. But it's so great to see so many newcomers battling it out with the familiar faces as well. Lewis Ward getting up there into, again, some strong championship points. Simon Povey bouncing back from his disappointment earlier on the season. While he did drop out of the second place spot, he still finished with a podium, so that's good for his championship. Maybe we'll see a great fight on the cards for a brilliant fifth season.
Well, we shall have to see, but it's Ayrton Williams that takes the win in the second round of the championship, and certainly made it an exciting one as well. A fantastic bit of driving all the way through the night, and we're going to be looking forward to seeing how he can get on as the season continues. That's going to be all tonight, though, here on Chaz Draycott Media in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Apologies that this shot isn't the prettiest thing in the world to fade out to, but thanks once again, Ed May. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and thanks once again to the championship sponsors, Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes, and, of course, Bespoke Shelters as well, and everybody involved at the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge for making it what it is. We'll be back in a week's time as we head to Watkins Glen, if I can say it right, in the rain for the first sprint race meeting of the season. But until then, thanks very much for watching, and have a good night. 4 French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. The 3 wide again, Guillaume down the inside. Gio moves across. They're both in front of Milan and
But
Pouget.
before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy. You know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake. Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been mugged and a drift to show off. Back there, go on ball with Ben Gregory now. I love it. 18.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.